Welcome to a Leader's Journey podcast. I'm your host, Joel Gunn, and today I have with me Travis, all the way from New Braunfels, Texas.
Yes, sir.
Travis and I have known each other for several years now. We got to do some work together a couple of years ago, but I'm excited. Just last month, you were recognized as the pillar of the community, or pillar in the community, there in New Braunfels. So congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you.
And how did all that come about? Was that a surprise, or?
Yeah, definitely a surprise. The Zeitung puts out a monthly edition, and so each month they select somebody to go in that pillar section. And so I'd gotten an email maybe a month and a half before that had informed me that I'd been nominated and wanted to get, come in and kind of get my story. So I was, always. I mean, it's not you don't do it for those reasons, but it is nice to know that people at least know you're trying.
Yeah.
So, so it was neat to be recognized, and I've had a lot of friends and connections locally there that have also, been recognized on a number of different people. So, it was just neat to be recognized and kind of tell your story and answer their questions about why you serve, and it's always an opportunity to share your heart and really why you take that time to serve and give back to your community.
Yeah, there was a season you and I were meeting monthly, and I know giving back was a big thing on your heart pretty much every month, but certainly you had those big events throughout the year. Tell our audience a little bit about what you do in the community and why you do what you do in the community.
Sure. Well, outside of my day-to-day work, I mean, we really probably where I'm most involved is Rotary. We've got a club, the New Braunfels Rotary Club in New Braunfels. There's two clubs in town, part of the Wednesday Club, and we've got a membership of about 150 people. A very active, extremely active organization. There's obviously there's always projects, different things in the community, whether it's, serving at the food bank or delivering, making food deliveries, and just odds and ends throughout the year. Our big things we do, we have two events throughout the year, one in the fall, one in the spring. Wurstfest is our biggest fundraiser, where we have the potato pancake booth at Wurstfest. And so that's a pretty big operation. We, I think last year we grossed somewhere around $225,000
wow.
in potato pancake sales over the 10 days. So, that's in the fall, or in the spring, I'm sorry, we have the Hill Country Craft Beer Festival. It's a one-day event, and I want to say this year was a little different. There was some challenges, some venue changes last minute, and so but we feel like we've gotten home now. Now Wurstfest has given us a commitment to I don't know, I think maybe it's 3 years for sure. So now we can prepare better and advertise in advance, and so hopefully get a better turnout for that event. But at the end of the day, we take that money, we're able to distribute it into the community for local nonprofits that apply for that grant. And so most recently, I just rolled off of the Charitable Contributions Committee, where that really came full circle for me, because I'm actually the chair of the Wurstfest booth, the Wurstfest committee. And so being that I was also on the Charitable Contributions Committee, getting to work those applications.
Mm-hmm. So you saw the direct tie,
and so we saw
this pancake to who gets the benefit.
That's right. So it just, it drives your mindset a little differently when because often when we meet regularly as a committee, the Charitable Contributions Committee, and we make awards quarterly. Mm-hmm. So there becomes a cutoff. Well, naturally, when people know, an organization, the community know that you're a solid place to come and apply for those grants. There's always more need than there is resource, mm-hmm. and so we have to make those tough decisions. And so it may come down to $2,500 or something. You'd love to give that, but so that sort of drives you when you're working hard on these fundraisers. It's like, man, if we could just sell another 10 plates, mm-hmm. and so that's where it kind of became full circle for me. And so. And just, really understanding, for most people that aren't in that world or haven't explored or ventured off into some of that nonprofit stuff, you hear a lot of talk of, feeling called. I mean, maybe something, mm-hmm. God speaks in different, different people, different ways. And so there's really no need to, there's not necessarily, there's so many ways to serve, right in your backyard.
Mm-hmm.
While there's certainly a lot of merit and good things when people go overseas, and whether it be spreading the gospel in places that haven't heard the gospel, that's certainly important. But you just, until you see it, you don't even know that's happening. That this need is all around you in your community. People that are really struggling, and so any opportunity you get to help in that arena. And especially getting to see it, with your own eyes and knowing you're helping people directly. It's just, I just don't know if there's anything that brings more joy than just that feeling you get when you've helped somebody in need that's really and truly in need. And so I first learned about, honestly, when I went through Leadership New Braunfels through the chamber, there was a day in our monthly meeting where the whole day was focused on volunteering and nonprofits. And so that was where my eyes were opened.
Is that where you really first got involved in public give back?
To the degree I am now, I mean, I'm like maybe many people. I kind of volunteered here and there when I was asked and stuff, but it wasn't until that day that I just had no idea. I just didn't know. I just didn't know there was that many nonprofits, and they all did something different. They all had some group they worked, they helped. And so it was just, we heard some really just touching testimony from people who their lives were changed because of these programs, whether it's community in schools, Big Brother, Big Sisters that maybe are more familiar with people, but just whether it's, just the list goes on, women that have been abused. So it was just, when you see that, I think we all ask ourselves, what can I do to make a change in the world? And you hear a lot of people say, well, you just start right, when you're starting your sphere of influence. And so it just, at that moment, it became real simple. It just wasn't, there was no more barriers, no more excuses. It was like, well, here you go. Here's 100 things you could sign up for tomorrow and be busy. And so the Rotary thing was where I got started. And Rotary obviously promotes that. Service above self is our motto. And the thing is that we have such a wonderful organization, wonderful club that out of 150 people, the big chunk of those, the majority of people are pretty active, and then even a chunk of those are extremely active. And so that's kind of home base for me. That's where I feel like that's where my people are, and we strengthen each other. And as a result of this, all kind of ties together, right? When I learned about, I was also on an organization that got started. It was called MB Next, and that was through the Community Foundation. It was designed to introduce young people, the importance of philanthropic. It was more, we kind of put a small amount of money in a pot, and we were able to give away a grant each year. And so that gave me a spot on the Community Foundation. Once I chaired that organization, it gave me a spot on the on the larger Community Foundation board. And so I saw, philanthropy at a much larger scale. And so and through that program, getting into the grant process, before I got involved with the grant process with Rotary, I identified an organization that just spoke to me. And so I instantly I knew that, okay, that's where I need to be. That's where I'm going to step off in my first, where I'm going to find out what it's all about. How do I get connected? How do I get involved in this organization? And so that's where it started for me. And it was an organization called STEPS, Solutions That Equip People for Success. And, there's really no parameters. There's no requirements of, it's just someone who needs somebody to kind of everything from people who have made a lot of money, can't figure out how to balance a budget, to people who have, who just want to improve want to eat better, they just want some accountability, some life coaching. And so did that for a while. And of course, COVID kind of disrupted everything like it did everybody. And I just took over as a board president the first part of the year. And so we're for STEPS. And so we're a small organization, but we're trying to reach more people. We've got a new executive director that I'm working closely with in our board. We have a small board, but we're kind of we want to see where we can take this and how we can affect more lives in a positive way.
If somebody was, rewind the clock, you connected through the community. Primarily, you were motivated that one particular day in the leadership program. But if you were talking to somebody just out in the general public, you said, hey, heard your podcast. How do I get started in my community? What are your thoughts around that? What should they be looking for? What should they Google?
In all fairness, I mean, it's probably easier in New Braunfels because it's a little, smaller community, a little tight. It's easier to kind of through hearsay and just referrals. But there's, Rotary would be a great place to start. I mean, I think if you're proactive and you're not intimidated by maybe doing some research, there's something you can start with, some of the more, whether it's United Way or, there's just so many different
ways. Salvation Army.
You start there and kind of do your homework. Like again, in our community, it's so much easier because I know who the go-to people are, like the McKenna Foundation. I know the CEO there, and she's kind of the New Braunfels mom, so to speak, of the nonprofits. Everybody goes to her, and she knows who's doing what. So it's really easy. She's just very keyed in.
Yeah.
She knows where the needs are. Certainly your church. Find out. I know I go to Oakwood in New Braunfels, and we sponsor a lot of ministries, and as a church, to a large scale. And so you just have to look a little bit. I think, but the main thing is just find, where your passion, where your real passion is, again, if it's children, you want to, there's like communities and schools. I think that's a fairly sizable one. It's not just unique to New Braunfels. You listen to some of that testimony, that'd be one to start with. They're very structured. Just sponsoring a young kid that's struggling. I can't even begin to tell you some of the testimony we heard from people who'd gone through that program where it literally changed their life. They were, so that's where I was just start researching, where you fit the best.
Yeah, and I think almost everybody knows somebody that knows somebody, right? Sure. Especially when it comes to volunteerism. And I suspect even if you posted something on Facebook, like looking to volunteer, 4 times this year, anybody have any ideas? Probably somebody out there will go, I got it.
There's somebody, all you got to do is say the word and you're in. So,
yeah. And so, that excites some people and may scare others. And my experience with volunteerism is it literally could be, showing up with a team of people to rake leaves, on a Saturday a couple of times a year, to board chair, board president, fundraisers, $200,000 worth of potato pancakes, and so on.
Sure.
So it's been my experience, and it sounds like it's been yours. There's so many ways to connect. I got to do something about a year ago with a group of folks that were volunteering at a local food bank, where they would literally get in these pallet-size containers of dry beans. Well, you can't, when somebody drives up, you can't just give them a scoop and, you got to package it. And so then we formed a little assembly line, and we're converting this giant, 500-pound thing of dry beans into these little 2-pound tubes and sealing them and everything, so that they're easier to distribute. That was super easy to do, right? I didn't have to go talk with people that, if that's not your thing, there's still a way to, pretty much somewhere in your community, however you're wired, there's going to be a way for you to live that out and give back in a way that's comfortable for you, I think.
That's an excellent point, actually, because that just, there's probably some truth to that. I know there's a lot of truth to it that I think maybe what maybe creates a reluctance or hesitancy to jump in is like, well, maybe you're not, maybe that's just not your calling to be right there on the front line, interacting. That's fine. Because it takes a village, right? So even though there's somebody out there on front, interacting with people, to hand them that little tube of beans. Somebody had to package it, and so there's endless ways. And it can be even further removed than that. It can be, folks who are, feel called to maybe be on, on more of a board level to use your brain, and maybe you're trying to get the word out there about your organization. That you got a marketing background. You know how to reach people. And so maybe you use your expertise to guide that organization to how to expand their reach. And of course, we're talking about volunteerism. Obviously, money is always I mean, you can't have one without the other. You got to have the help, but you got to have the money. And so maybe you're good at fundraising. Maybe you have a huge network. Maybe you can go out and raise money. A lot of people don't love doing that, but there's some people that don't mind it and they're really good at it.
Yeah. And
so you just have to really, again, it kind of goes back to what I'm saying about, trying to identify your passion, your calling. First of all, it's like anything we do, right? You got to find out what you're good at and where you find joy. But I know that wherever because even in the pancake booth, for Wurstfest booth, that's all hands on deck. All 150 our members are required to work 4 shifts.
Wow.
And so throughout the 10 days, cover 4 shifts. They can have somebody help volunteer and someone cover some shifts for them. But they're responsible for those 4 shifts. And the thing is, those people know, they get excited because even though they're not interacting with anybody, they know they're part of the team that made it happen. That someone had to be there cooking those pancakes and selling them to get to raise those money. So it really is. There's just no excuse. I mean, there's endless opportunity, and you can find where you fit and move around. I mean, if you're new to it, I mean, you get into something, it's okay. I mean, if it's not your calling, it's not your thing. Just try something different. Definitely don't say it's not for me, because I think something I've realized, as I said, like, money, they're both necessary, money and kind of sweat, the sweat equity side of things. I mean, it's you kind of ask yourself, and it's going to be different for everybody, right? But I think part of maybe the satisfaction in it is asking yourself, it's like a hard workout or something, was it a sacrifice? Was it, and I think that sometimes, while it's important to write a check and they need the money, sometimes the real sacrifice for busy people, busy lives is physically giving their time. And so, that's where the kind of rubber meets the road. Like, it's great. You wrote a, $100 check or $5,000, whatever it is, it's appreciated and necessary. But when you really kind of get your hands dirty, that's when the more joyful, that's when you're able to kind of get some of that fulfillment and seeing, and that's just it's just hard to explain. If you served, you know what I'm talking about. If you haven't done it, there's just this, it's just an intangible that's really hard to quantify. What that feeling you get when you know you're doing something good, it almost makes everything else just not,
the younger generations get a lot of flack the last decade or so. But one thing I love about them is they're way more community aware, way more community conscious, wanting to give back, wanting to make a difference, willing to, miss a few hours of work and not get paid if that's what it takes, or give up some of their free time to go make the world a better place. And so I applaud the younger generations for definitely making that a priority. And I like it. I've done some, I'm involved in various nonprofits and at different levels over my lifetime. And I really enjoy, in the last few years, seeing more and more young people getting, I don't know if that's been your experience in Braunfels, but you're starting to see 20-something-year-olds that are, showing up more, and maybe even in their 20s. I was in my 20s when I volunteered for, a nonprofit board, which was crazy, professional society. And so I think you're right, though. If you've done it, you already know what we're talking about. And if you never have, probably words fail us to just adequately describe what it does for the heart. I think we as humans are I'd say designed to give back. And so there's just a piece of us that until we do, we don't get to experience that part of ourselves.
Well, you hear the stories. We've all heard them about, this real wealthy person is laying there on their deathbed, and the last thing something they never say is, I wish I'd earned another dollar. It's about the relationships they made. And I think that, and not to digress too much, but I think that, you hear somebody say, well, I'm a self-made person. Well, I would say that you worked hard and you were smart, you're given a gift and you're able to do something with it. But somewhere along the way, somebody helped you. and not just once or twice. You know, we live in a system that gives you the freedom and to make things happen. So I just feel like there's just me personally. I just feel that there's some responsibility to take where you've been and know that somewhere you may not be able to identify them. I'm sure you can identify some, but there's probably a lot of people you're not able to identify that helps you behind the scenes you didn't even know about. And so again, as I've, been more in it and learned more about people and why they, I've heard all kinds of comments about why don't they just get up and fix their problem and go, I might have been somebody like that at one time, a little more, I don't know what the word is. I think it's more hard love. I mean, maybe judgmental. That you just don't know people's story, and when you start getting to talk to people, and you're certainly convicted that you just gotta quit being. I mean, it's not. You just can't be so judgmental because you just don't know where they've been or what they've had to deal with. And so part of what attracted me to Steps was the best way I heard it. This isn't my own. This isn't my creativity. It's more of a hand up organization than it is a hand out. And so that's what attracted me because I mean, again, the whole proverb of, I don't know if it's a Chinese proverb, give a guy a fish, he'll eat for a day. If you teach him to fish, he'll eat for a lifetime. I'm just a firm believer in that. I want to help. I want to kind of give you a hand up, but I want to give you the tools and the skill set to not keep repeating the same stuff, but to a lot of credit, I mean, to give anybody credit there, I mean, I think if they've never been mentored, if they've never been coached or shown, never seen the way you do that, they've always, where they come from, maybe their parents were having problems. I've heard people, parents are, substance abuse, something, they just were never shown how to do things. And so they just don't know where to go. So that's probably my biggest passion, to show people how, kind of a coaching and just how do you can wake up every day and decide differently. Might be a little harder for you because you don't have the opportunity or the resources some other people have, but you can do it if you have some support and a good coach or something. That's what I want to see, is people to kind of get out of the things that got them where they are today, or at least have been the cause of why they are, why they are where they are today.
You mentioned a moment ago about you don't really believe in this idea of a self-made person, and it got me to thinking a little bit about your own career trajectory. You got out of college, and so I want to kind of transition into that for a minute. Thanks for sharing about community involvement. We were talking a little before the show, and I wanted to go there, and that was a fun conversation. But talk to us a little bit. It's called A Leader's Journey. You've had a journey that a lot of leaders have had. But I'd like to hear your perspective on get out of college, get your first job, become the employee, eventually left that, started your own company, then got merged with a larger national company, so you became an employee again. And then recently, in the last few years, you've gone off and now you're an owner again. So you've been employee, owner, at least that I'm aware of. I don't know if there's other cycles there. So tell us a little bit about that process. Where'd you start? And
I think it really started early. I mean, my parents always encouraged working and earning, and from a very young age, I live in a little neighborhood, 2-street neighborhood. Maybe we had 50 homes or something, and so from a young age, I just drug my mower around and power washer and did odd things before I could drive to generate a little extra cash. And so it started real young, and I was able to put that together at a young age. That, if you want something, you got to go make it happen, right? And so it started there in college. I mean, I was not a good student at all, but I worked a lot and socialized a lot, and I just didn't focus on schoolwork. So it caught up with me in the later years before I graduated. I got out, I did it, but it did come back to haunt me when it came time to apply for a job. I was kind of put behind the 8 ball, and so I had to really highlight my work experience and really sort of compensate for those lower grades, showing that a lot of my time was consumed, earning and being involved, in college even. And so on top of that, I graduated in December of 2001, so it was right on the heels of 9/11. And corporate America was kind of on a hiring freeze. My grades were nothing. My finance, I was a finance major, so my finance classes were okay. I mean, that was something else I'd highlight as well. I learned something along the way, but at the end of the day, it was tough for me. I was watching friends get good jobs, and I was really struggling. And so I had the opportunity. I got a call around Thanksgiving before I graduated from an appraiser in San Antonio. Really being from here, at the time I was young, and I had some reason I wanted to move to Dallas or Houston, and so God had different plans. I mean, that it's kind of the butterfly effect. I mean, I wouldn't be where I am today if I did. I would not have been my first choice, but that was the best opportunity. And they said, well, hey, we're not going to be able to pay you a whole lot to start with, but you're going to have the opportunity to kind of set your own pay. And so we were kind of went through an 18-month apprenticeship, get my licensing and stuff, like take all my advanced classes and everything to get credentialed. And but once I got past that apprenticeship point, it was just since I was kind of all you can eat. I mean, it was as long as you want to work, there was always work, and it was always you got a percent of what you did. There was no sales to it. There was just like, I got this pile of work here. You just take all you want. And so that created something in me. That drove me. I mean, because it was something that I thought, well, when I was young and single, I mean, I thought, well, I mean, I'm certainly going to have fun and stuff, but, and have a life, but be real. And this is a time you want to earn when you're young and, kind of get your feet, really get your feet. And so I did that for, maybe 9 years or something, and became a partner with that firm. And then just had a different vision and was tired of commuting. I was living in Braunfels and commuting to downtown San Antonio. And I just had a different vision of what I wanted to get out of my work life, and, the leadership, doing things different, as I hired people and setting a different example. And so I started my deal, of course, I mean, naturally, we just things started to progress there, and we were doing well and hired a couple of people, and then connected with a friend of mine that I grew up in the appraisal business with at a conference in DC one year, and then he was the CEO of the national group that I joined, and so I saw it as an opportunity to kind of scale what I'd done there. There's a piece of me that thinks maybe I jumped out a little too early. There was no reason to. I mean, things were going up, but I thought that was kind of the easy fix, and they'd have all the cool toys that I probably could never afford, or justify. Mm-hmm. But I don't. But looking back, I mean, that was just part of the journey. That was part of God's journey, no question. Because I learned things with that big group, scalability, the way they operate. I learned a bunch of really important logistical skills, workflow skills. How to scale your business. And so that was, looking back, I mean, where I am today, that was part of the journey. So, but what I did when we talked before, did I learn anything from that? I think the biggest thing I learned is I'm probably not somebody cut out for corporate America. It's just, it wasn't a good fit for me. I didn't know that when I took that first job out of college. It was a regional boutique firm, well-known, my first firm. So from the day one, I mean, I just was put where I naturally needed to be. And so I never saw some of the things that, the work life of more of a corporate, corporate employee and having to climb the ranks. And so it was different. It just probably not a totally fair shot. The company I went to work for I had a lot of autonomy. And so I didn't feel a lot of the corporate stuff, but as they started to grow quick, it became more thou shalts and not this and not that. And then went through COVID, it's their company, it's their P&L. And I lost an admin kind of without having any say. And I was really, I was of course upset. I mean, we're all trying to figure this out. And they said, well, hey, by the way, we have to let her go. And that function is now going to be served out of Dallas. And I thought, well, that's just not going to work. I mean, they're in Dallas. I don't really know who they are. And so anyway, I just realized it wasn't for me. And it's all part of the journey. And so then we I partnered with a friend of mine, and just the timing was right. And, we started, he and I, and today, that was in February 22. And so today there's 6 of us, so we're doing some good things. We have a really good team, good foundation, good people. Everybody gets along real well. So it's exciting because that's another thing about the self-employed. It's just kind of, there's a lot of risk. It's been tough, and it's still tough, especially in the market we're in when you're trying to sell commercial real estate, but there's a bright light at the end of the tunnel. We just got to keep grinding, but there's also a lot of opportunity being in an ownership role to set the tone on how you want that firm to grow and what you want that culture to be like, and trying to do something different. I'm not saying there's not other companies out there that don't do great things, but we get to do it the way we want to do it and allocate dollars the way we want to allocate dollars, the way we find value, maybe a little differently than somebody else. Maybe we spend more on community service. My business partner is very philanthropic guy, very, he's the guy, can-do attitude, very much the snap of a finger. He's there. He's a doer. He's not a talker. He's a doer. And so we really mesh well there. He just came off being president of the Rotary Club. And so, so we're very well aligned there and giving back to the community and using our resources and our leadership to be of service locally.
When did you first entertain the idea? Do you recall how old you were when you first entertained the idea of owning your own company?
To be honest, I don't know if I ever thought of it.
Yeah.
I just don't know. I mean, my parents weren't business owners. I just never, I don't think I was around a lot of business owners, at the time, my parents' friends, I can't say that I ever.
So what motivated you or prompted you to go from college to this cushy job, whatever you can transact, you can make money off of, to, hey, I'm going to start off on my own? Like, what was that?
I just think that once I figured it all out, naturally over time in that appraisal business, I actually started developing. I had the security of earning a living off of work that was procured by somebody else. I was the doer. They were the rainmaker. I was the doer. They bring in the door. I do it. And over time, naturally, with the passage of time and taking care of people and just doing a good job and doing what you say you're going to do, naturally people start just calling you direct, or people you interact with, you help them. So before you know it, you kind of have your own book of business. Was
it somebody encouraged you to make the leap, or just one day you're like, this is like I've heard all kinds of stories, right? There's one of my clients now for almost 10 years. He just was tired of the grind and is like, I could do this on my own and I'll figure it out, and took the leap, right? There's other people that friends will come up and go, you could do this on your own. Let me introduce you to so-and-so, or, and so what was that like for you?
I think it just came down to, I just felt like I hit a wall. I just couldn't get everybody on the same page. And I thought I can just do this on my own. And I just, because honestly, it wasn't a planned deal.
Was it over like weeks and months, or you kind of one weekend? I think I'm done.
Yeah, I think I think the thought was in my mind for a long months, maybe years, months for sure. But ultimately stepping off, literally was days. Yeah. I wasn't quite ready, and we were going to have to make some commitments as partners. And I just didn't want to pretend anymore and go through all that, unravel it. So I just knew it was right. And it's it's honestly one of those, for me, next to being saved, was probably one of the few just supernatural moments that I was so terrified. Scared to death, knowing it's what I had to do. And I was putting it off, going to dial the phone. Well, the main person was one of the partners I needed to tell. Was he called me and said, hey, we need to get together as a group and meet today for lunch and discuss all this stuff. And they just blurted it out. I said, well, hey, I need it. There's something maybe a little more important than that. And so I had to kind of spill the beans, but the relief that came when I did that. And so I was off and running. It was a God thing, no question. It's always all a God thing, but that was one of those moments that he put the word. He pushed. So here we are. I put the ball in motion, and and it was the right thing to do, and it felt really good when I got it off my chest.
Yeah. I was in a meeting many years ago, and we were talking about strategy and what to do, and it was a pretty heavy atmosphere in the room, and trying to get some things worked out. And somebody in the room said, "Well, I could always leave and go back to what I used to do," and I was like, that was me that just said that. It just came out, And everybody kind of stopped and looked at me, and I'm like, where'd that come from,
Yeah.
And over the next few months, it just, started to, I recognize that was something that just bubbled up out of me, and that there was something more there to investigate.
Yeah.
And it led to one of the coolest seasons in my life, and so I can relate a little bit to what you might have been experiencing in that phone call, because it kind of shocked me that I said it out loud. I was like, oops. But it turned out to be a really cool season, that next season. And still friends with all those people that were in the room that day. So
that's good. That's all.
Yeah. So as you transitioned from being employee to being boss, right, or being employee to being owner, did you find any paradigms had to shift for you, or how you treat people, or how you think about work? Any major changes there for you? Some people just kind of slide right into it. Other people, it's a big aha.
I realized at some point that you were in charge, that you were relied upon. No question, especially in the early days, just knowing that as a leader, as somebody who's decisive, people tend to follow that. It's really helpful when your decisions end up over time being the right ones. I think you develop a trust, and then again, these aren't. I didn't come up with these things, but it's just willing to don't ask someone to do something that you're not willing to do yourself. So when you're leading people, they've got to see that, if you expect them to kind of do what it takes, they need to see you doing it, not as you're walking out the door, going home or going out to play golf or something, and you're telling them how important these deadlines are. You show them by, you're going to cancel your golf tournament because we got a deadline to meet, and they're not going home. You're not going home until that deal's done. So, and I'm very much a tough love guy. I believe in work hard, play hard. I don't expect anybody that I'm leading or working with me, I would never encourage them to get their work-life balance out of whack. But I would expect them to recognize there are times, from time to time, when the job, it's your livelihood. You got to protect that reputation. There are times that you might have to put something else second to your obligations at work. And I just think sometimes that maybe that's what's missing, and I don't want to pick on the younger generation. I think it's more a cultural thing that, we fall back on, well, I'm not a workaholic. I don't, all this other stuff come up, might call it our family comes first. Certainly your family comes first. But there are times where I think that you've also got commitments to people, that your clients, that your employees, your coworkers, your teammates, that you agree to do something, and sometimes it just.
Yeah, I think the biggest issue, I would say, is when that becomes the expected norm. Like, I worked 100-hour weeks for part of my corporate life. That was unhealthy, right?
Sure, absolutely.
But if I did that for 2 months because it was a major project to help spin this business unit off, which was another season in my life, then my wife understood, and she was like, okay, but it was a matter of communication and planning and still figuring out how to make her a priority even in those times, where, I check in a couple of times a day on the phone, or make sure as soon as I came home, I didn't stay up watching TV. I went and sat with her, spent time with her. So I agree with you. We can't necessarily say a perfect life is one that everything's the same all the time. And I know some people want that, but life's not necessarily that way. If you look at seasons, there's a time to sow, there's a time to reap and harvest, there's a time to plant, and then there's winter, where you don't do any of that. You just let the ground sit and you catch your breath and you relax, and the sun's out shorter hours. And so I think there's something built into us, kind of these natural rhythms of work hard, play hard is the more modern saying that kind of describes that. And I love that. I mean, there was times I worked 100-hour weeks, several weeks or months in a row. But then when that was done, if I took a 2-hour lunch break, I didn't feel bad about that at all, and nobody in leadership gave me a hard time about it either, because they know what I just did, to help get this other thing done. And so that's why more and more people, I'm running into more and more people that are not using the term work-life balance, but it's getting the priorities right. It's going back to the word we used to use a couple of decades ago, talking about priorities. And because you can't, I don't know if you can truly balance where, 8 hours of work, 8 hours of family time, 8 hours of sleep, like work still gets the lion's share no matter what you do. Sure. Or at least for most of us. I'm sure there's exceptions, but what are your thoughts for somebody that's maybe having those thoughts that they want to make the leap from employee to business owner? You've done it twice. What'd you do right, and what'd you wish you had thought of or done differently?
Yeah, and this go round, I mean, the barriers to entry were a little lower the first time. This go round, this latest venture is barriers to entry have been a little higher. The timing wasn't perfect. I think the first thing is you need to have some, you need to have some capital. That's the big thing. Have a plan, to be able. I mean, there's obviously, I'm not an expert, but I know that there's a high. It's a very low success rate, but that doesn't at all mean that should be everybody's story. I just think that you've got to go into it being realistic with yourself and understand really the financial sacrifice. You might get lucky, might hit it, might hit it big, and your thing takes off, and it's no longer a problem. But that's the reality. It takes time. It takes time, and you got to still pay the bills. And if you're somebody that's able to kind of dip your toe while you're got a paycheck, if you're able to do that, and it's fair for everybody. You're not, cheating your current employer, but if it makes sense, something you can do on the weekends, just kind of see out. I mean, you need to go into it with your eyes wide open, that know what you're getting into, do your research. That's a whole, there's a lot to this, but at the end of the day, I mean, having faith. I mean, at the end, that's the most important thing is praying about it and knowing that that's what God would have you. That's where He thinks. That's where He knows you to be.
I've seen a lot of people in business settings and other more personal pursuits, and I say it's most of the time it's at least a year before they feel like they're getting their feet under them, and I would say probably closer to 3+. I don't know what your experience has been in both those times you leap from employee to owner, but what was your time frame where you felt like you were starting to really feel like you got it's clicking,
right, and
the money's matching, right? How long would you say that took for you?
If it were the lower end, like 1 year, I mean, probably that would match more my first venture, because I was really just.
Were you single at the time?
No,
you were married. Okay.
Yeah, that was in when I left, it was 2014. Oh,
okay.
And Jen and I've been married since 2006, and so the first time, I guess, it was just the guts to pull, to do it, because I had the business already. So, and it was low overhead. Because that's the thing about starting a business. What are you trying to do? I'm a professional service provider, so I needed a computer and some paper and some E&O insurance and a couple subscriptions. But if you're going to go open a
so you felt that first time it took you about a year to get. Things were clicking and the money's matching, and this is going to work. Right.
Yeah, I think so. I would tell you January of 15, December 14 is kind of January 15 is when I started. Had a lot of work, so it's just a matter of getting it done with no help. Well, I shouldn't say no help. At the time, my wife Ginger was helping me, and so I did have her help, which was valuable. I remember by September, October, I made my first hire.
Nice.
And the moment I did that, that was again, it's, you're nervous, but it's that taking that next step. And the moment I did that, it all clicked. It's okay. This is how you do it. I got some help. He was the right hire. He was good. He's still good. He's a good friend of mine to this day, and somebody I kind of mentored and trained him up. And he's still in the business, but that's when it kind of started to, then it's just from there. It's like, well, that was pretty easy. We got to find the next one. Had a little help, part-time help from a friend, his wife, do some of my admin stuff. And so then of course, then I made the transition. So I didn't get to see where that story, in that chapter where it went, it kind of got
merged with the bigger national company,
Right.
Became an employee again. Now this last time, not to put you on the spot, but it sounds like you feel like it's clicking. But are you there? Are you there yet? Whatever your definition of there is.
I'm not there yet. No. But again, like I said, I really
launched in COVID, so that's
it's not an illusion. The light I'm seeing, it's real. I know it's real. I can kind of even feel the breeze coming in coming
the
in
end of the tunnel. Yeah.
And so it's just at this point, I think it's a market. It's really a market thing. It's just we're
Glad
just
you brought that up because I want to wrap our episode up with this. I know you're not an economist. I know you don't get paid to predict, but what are you seeing out in the marketplace? Where do you think it's going? Short term, long term, whatever you feel like commenting on. So you're in commercial real estate.
Yeah,
You've got a unique perspective because everybody needs commercial real estate. Manufacturers need it. Doctors need it. Professionals need it. Everybody uses commercial real estate if you got a company of any size. So.
Yeah, and just following people I perceive to be experts and trust. I mean, again, none of us have a crystal ball, but people I feel are credible. I think the saying's been survive till 25 or stay alive till 25, And so I think, you already see that the feds are, they're kind of headed that way. We're going to drop rates. We got overinflated. So it's really just a matter of, it's kind of maybe a perfect storm as we sit here right this moment in our foreseeable future. I think we're going to have to kind of reprogram, when you start talking about as a seller's of property, say about selling, you got to kind of forget about what we were doing in 21. I mean, those days are sort of gone for the time being, which probably, some of that, probably that's why we got so and people were paying prices that just didn't really make sense. They were betting on the come. All those things can go up forever. So we can overpay today because tomorrow it'll be fine.
I saw the opening title and line or two in an article. I didn't read the whole thing. Made it sound like a lot of PE starting to move into high rises. I guess you said betting on the come. So are you reading that? Did I misread the article or what's your sense?
I don't know if I can be that granular. Multifamily type stuff has always been, that's something that really, got overheated. Maybe even some investors or participants, sponsors that got into the game that really didn't know what they were doing. Frankly, they just kind of knew enough. And so then, the music did stop. And so I don't think we've seen the fallout of that yet. So, I think there's going to be some people that get hurt financially.
You think here in Texas that's going to happen, or are you talking nationally?
I think everywhere. Yeah, okay. Everywhere. Just
multifamily, or you think it's broader?
Others. These interest rates. When deals were they were low margins and deals they were being aggressive on the front end with low interest rates. You move that interest rate. All of a sudden, you got a contract rent in place. You can't go back to the tenant and renegotiate the lease. And so, if your debt service you're underwater. Just the thing, you just refinance your note. You'll find that there's no cash left over. Maybe you have to feed it. So you're going to have to decide: are you a seller? Are you going to feed it? You got some decisions to make. And I think right now, and I would say over my entire 23 years of commercial real estate, remember in the appraisal side of things, we were a really good barometer. Our workflow, because even whether it tended to positively correlate, but I could feel things kind of like a weather vane, just in the volume and the velocity of bid requests I would get or opportunities to do appraisals. There'd be days when things were on fire. Every other email was a new job opportunity. So you always could kind of tell where we were, and I just know, where I think maybe I could, find some pieces, knowing that. As we kind of come into close summer here and move into the fall, we get so close to an election that obviously this
Everybody
election
pauses.
has big. I mean, no matter where you're at on the thing, I mean, you got two different visions, and so I think I don't want to say just sophisticated people, but it is what it is. We can't control that, so you have to have a plan under both scenarios, and so it's not so much why you may prefer one over the other. At the end of the day, what creates the pullback, I think, is just the not knowing. I mean, maybe you're somebody that's so well charted that you got two paths, and you know exactly what you're going to do. You just don't know which path you're going to go on yet. And so invariably, as we kind of come in, anything that's not in progress, or there's not somebody, that has just a dire need or something like that, most people are going to probably
Pause
pull
for the
back
next
a little
90
bit
days or so.
and just see kind of where things go. And so that's another thing that kind of doesn't. But I mean, I feel like, after the election, one way or the other, I think, there's people are spending money, and we're in we happen to be in a high, inbound population growth market. And so it's hard to read the macro stuff and apply it locally because, the dynamics are different.
They are.
And so, you just, all you can go is what you feel. The phone's still ringing. People are still looking for stuff.
You're still excited about the New Braunfels market and greater New Braunfels. I love that sign that you guys had. Was it New Braunfels or Shirts? The closest, our closest suburb was San Antonio. Remember that billboard a few years ago? They flipped the script. In other words, we're the big city and San Antonio is the suburb.
Yeah, I have seen that. Yeah, I don't know who it was. If it was New Braunfels or I don't know. New Braunfels.
Somebody right there on 35.
They like to they like to try and fly, even though that's not possible anymore, but kind of fly under the radar. So
You guys are definitely a hot market.
Pounding their chest for the growth. I mean, I think most people have been there a long time. They're growth is kind of, to some people in our market, kind of bad concept.
Like Austin, right? Avoid growth at all costs.
Yes. So I just, but we're on that I-35 corridor. I think that, big challenge we're going to have is just inventory. And right now, I mean, with interest rates and cost of construction, it just things aren't penciling. Just, it's not feasible for new construction is tough, and so,
Are sellers still getting as good a deal as they were a few years ago overall?
I think to some degree we peaked. I mean, on that side, it's just hard. There's more to it. I mean, it's all income driven. So I think some of the thing, the way we price investment real estate on a rate of return, if the income stays flat, you require more return and you can pay less for it, right? I think there's no question that rate of return with the perceived risk and just now cost of capital, it's just algebraic. When you want to put debt on something, those rates of return have to price your asset have to go up. And so I'm thinking that if we continue to see rent growth, there's maybe a little pause, but as rent growth may offset some of that change in those required rates of return. So maybe the overall impact on gross value maybe get washed a little bit, because the income grew over that period you're studying. It's hard to say, but I wouldn't be saying like, if I look at a transaction 2120, we're gonna get more than that today. I wouldn't. It's not I wouldn't call it a seller's market.
Yeah, my kids are all 30. Kids and their spouses are all 30 and below, and they're all saying it cost them way more to rent or buy than my grandparents did, as a percentage of income.
Yeah.
And so they're feeling,
Certainly.
so the investors are going, well, we could just raise the rent. And the kids, the 20-somethings that are most likely to be in the apartments and the multifamily are saying, it's getting to where I can't afford, they're paying a few $100s less than a mortgage.
Yeah.
Of a small house. And so it's going to be interesting to see how that plays out.
We said that in New Braunfels, we have that issue. I mean, affordable housing, I think the kind of the median scenario, this was kind of under older mortgage rates. In order to afford kind of the median priced home or the median rental situation, which is based on your percentage of income to qualify or what have you, I think that they figured out the number had to be household income about $75,000.
Wow.
So, I mean, I mean, that's a lot.
That's out of reach for a lot
you
of
just look at, this is
$20 an hour. People are going to have a hard time getting
you
that.
got to have to find a roommate or be married.
Yeah. And both people working.
And both people working hard. And the thing is that you got somebody say they graduate, come from right up the road in San Marcos, go to Texas State, maybe somebody can come coach or something there in one of the local schools. I mean, they'd have to find a roommate or be married or something to afford to live, or they're going to have to live out and commute in.
Wow, that's crazy. I didn't know that. Yeah. So we could talk all day as we have often in the past.
Yeah, for sure.
Any final thoughts?
No, first of all, thank you for having me.
My pleasure.
This is neat to come sit and catch up and talk. So I'm always available. If someone sees this show and is interested in that service and trying to get involved, I could be a resource there, and always willing to share my story. I mean, I'm always willing, as long as somebody's willing to sit and listen to me, I'm glad to tell my story. So
you definitely have that warm demeanor, very approachable from the moment I met you, and it's one of the many things I appreciate about you. Thanks for being here today.
You bet.
Love you, brother.
I love you.
Thanks for joining us for this episode of A Leader's Journey podcast. If you enjoyed it, give us a thumbs up and remember to subscribe to our channel.